Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency. My name is Stephen Dunbar-Johnson, and as publisher of the International Herald Tribune, it is my great and sincere privilege to welcome you to this global conversation this evening. On this very day, 125 years ago, on a chill morning, a little bit like this morning here in Paris, horse-drawn carriages began to make their way across Paris from a cramped printing shop in Rue Coq-Héron, not far from here, to distribute packages of a new 4-page newspaper to kiosks and hotels in the most elegant sections of the city. So the awakening haute monde of what was the most cosmopolitan center in Europe found the European edition of the New York Herald, and what was to become the International Herald Tribune, waiting for them at their breakfast tables. Here is a copy of that paper printed 125 years ago. Our founder, James Gordon Bennett, a great man, had spotted a gap in the market and introduced an American-style newspaper to Europe. It was a venture that was so well suited to time, place, and social conditions that it would rapidly carve out for itself a unique position among European newspapers. What no one could foresee was that what began as an intensely personal 4-page paper would outlast all the other newspapers in Paris, bar two. Through a continuous process of adaptation, and go on to survive the terrible turmoil and upheaval of the first part of the 20th century to become one of the world's great newspapers. But the birth of this paper was really the result of a convergence of some rather eccentric circumstances. James Gordon Bennett was, in the 1860s, the publisher of the New York Herald. However, he left New York under a scandalous cloud shortly after his engagement party, where he had the dubious distinction of setting a Guinness Book of Record entry that lasts to this day, that of the biggest engagement faux pas. Bennett arrived drunk at his own engagement party and attempted to put out the fire in the fireplace, as legend goes, by peeing into it. It was this scandalous event that brought Bennett to Paris, where he sought refuge from the disdain of the New York ruling class. He quickly established himself here in other eccentric, but I think less outlandish ways. He founded a motor race, the Gordon Bennett Cup, that still exists in France today, and was indeed the precursor to today's Formula One racing. And had a hot air balloon race, the Coupe Aéronautique Gordon Bennett, that still exists to this very day. Unfortunately, I don't have time this evening to go into all of his exploits and achievements, but believe me, there were many. But I would urge you, in fact, to read Eric Fanner's piece in our 125th anniversary section today, if you want to find out a little bit more about Bennett. One thing I can say, though, with certainty, is that Bennett was an extraordinary man. He excelled at innovation. He part-financed the laying of a transatlantic cable which spurred the creation of an international newspaper. He was the first to distribute newspapers by car and later by aeroplane. The first to use the radio to transmit news, the first to give sports events front-page play, and the first to give prominent attention to the news of science and medicine. At the time of Bennett's death, editor and publisher, which was then the Bible of the news trade, wrote, and I quote, "The New York Herald Paris edition was probably read by more rulers, potentates, and men of high officialdom than any other newspaper published." Now, as a trawl through our archives testifies, and by the way, you should download our free 125-year anniversary app, the IHT, now the global edition of the New York Times, has its roots in entrepreneurship and innovation. and this is something which continues to this very day. Working with our colleagues at the New York Times, we have extended our journalism to every corner of the globe, and we are available on all devices and platforms on which our readers wish to read us, from print to tablet to smartphone, web, and indeed Kindle. And again, as part of the New York Times, we are making investments in mobile and video technology, as well as finding new ways to engage with our global readership on social media. Indeed, we have been asking our Twitter followers and Facebook fans to submit their questions for the panel this evening. And this event is being broadcast live over the internet to a global audience on both the Latitude blog, on the IHT Global Opinion pages, on NewYorkTimes.com, and also on IHT Rendezvous, our community site. Hello, Mum. I'm here. So everyone here watching, everyone here and on the web, good evening, and thank you for tuning in. For any tweeters in the room or online, we encourage you to join the debate using the hashtag IHT125 to make comments or submit questions for the panel. Unfortunately, neither Arthur Sulzberger, publisher of the New York Times, nor Michael Golden, my predecessor as publisher of the IHT and the vice chairman of the New York Times, is able to be with us this evening as they had planned. As you have probably read or heard, Arthur's father, Punch, his predecessor and publisher of the New York Times, and one of the greatest newsmen, has passed away last weekend. Punch was a fierce proponent of the freedom of speech and of high-quality journalism. The fact that the Times won 31 Pulitzer Prizes under his tenure as publisher is a testament to that fact. Arthur and Michael have asked me to pass on their regrets at being unable to attend and extend their very best wishes to all. I'm actually particularly sad that Arthur is not here with us this evening because I think he has a lot in common with Bennett, and no, it's not a weak bladder. It's a track record of constantly looking forward and fostering innovation. In fact, also just like his father, Punch. Both Arthur and Michael have been fantastic supporters of the International Herald Tribune and have helped spur the close integration that the two papers enjoy, and they have encouraged us to foster the same sense of innovation and transformation that has been instilled at the Times. Back in the 90s, having quickly grasped the transformation the web would have on the news business, Arthur pioneered an integration of the web paper newsrooms at the Times and invested heavily in developing a website that is widely acclaimed for its depth and breadth and for having no equal in the news business. This innovation on mobile platforms, in video and social media continues to this very day, and indeed is accelerating. Furthermore, it was Arthur that challenged the assumption that the news genie had been let out of the bottle and that readers would not pay for news, commentary and analysis, even if it was of the highest standards. Since introducing a pay model a little over 18 months ago, the New York Times and IHT have well over 500,000 digital subscribers. But most of all, Arthur and Michael have never wavered from one underlying core assumption, an assumption instilled by Punch Sulzberger that no matter what the platform, it is essential to hold your journalism to the highest possible standards. This is something that James Gordon Bennett also held dear, and is the reason I believe he would have been pleased to see the newspaper he started 125 years ago on this very day, tightly edited for the sensibilities of the international community, has retained its core mission and expanded it to become today's global edition of the New York Times. So, as we look back fondly to the beginnings of the IHT in this anniversary year, we also look forward. To celebrate 125 years as a premier international source of news, opinion, and commentary for the global community, we've been hosting a series of public, high-level panel discussions in which thought leaders of world renown joined some of our editors and columnists to debate issues which challenge the world's future development and prosperity. We are very grateful for our sponsors Girard Perregaux and Getty Images for helping us put on this event this evening. At a time of great political and economic upheaval across the world, tonight we will also ask how and if Europe can restore competitiveness on the world stage. With high labour costs and the related soaring unemployment, crippling deficits, and the most sophisticated yet expensive social system in the world, isn't European competitiveness bound to be eclipsed by emerging and emerged markets, both east and west, and possibly south in the future? Critically, will the European electorate, who has witnessed 65 years of unprecedented wealth creation, have the appetite to endorse the decisions and tough measures required to make Europe competitive again? These are all topics our illustrious panelists, Viviane Reding, Carl Bildt, Luca Cordero di Montezemello, have I got that right? Nearly got it right. Apologies. And our moderator, Andrew Ross Sorkin, will address this evening. And I suspect Prime Minister Samaras, whom we are very honoured to have here this evening, will touch upon too. But before I ask Alison, the IHT's executive editor, to introduce Prime Minister Samaras, I would like us to get serious for a moment. To do that, I've asked Patrick Chapat, our cartoonist for the past dozen years, to talk to us for a minute about how he manages to take all these hilarious events taking place around the globe and to reduce them to somber, serious drawings. These appear twice a week at the IHT, in the IHT, and on the Global Opinion webpage. And Patrick's longer narrative cartoons are featured in our magazine, Global Agenda. I'm very proud to note that this year Patrick was the winner of the Overseas Press Club Award for the best cartoons. So without further ado, Patrick, let's get serious. Thank you. Thank you.